Okay, this is Rebelfrak, and man, now that I don't have the hat on or the mask, I have some time on my hands, so I decided to do a few more vids, and I wanted to talk about the painting that you saw in the last video that I just did called What We Need. It is the second canvas in a diptych that is touching on social commentary around an issue that is of concern for a lot of people here in the city, and it's based on the first canvas is centered around a project that is an ongoing project from one of the community outreach organizations. Their building is situated on a major thoroughfare next to a bus stop, and they've given over the front of their building to a mock graveyard. And at the beginning of each year, they will put crucifixes there representing those people in the city who die behind homicide. And so they'll put the first name of the individual, their age, and the month and day that they are killed. And there are years when good years when the number of crucifixes are relatively few, and then there are those years when the crosses just add up, when the graveyard begins to fill, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 rows deep. And after a while, if you pay attention to this, you'll notice that the majority of the ages of these individuals are between 16, 17, on up to maybe 26, 27. The majority of them are male, and it only has the first name, but you can recognize some of them, are Hispanic names. Some of them are Muslim, and they're making a point, and they're using a different art style. They're not using traditional canvas and pigment and bristle, but they are using art. They're using visual imagery to touch upon an issue within the community, and that is something that art can be used in a public setting, in a public forum. That way it can be used to talk about the triumphs of a community. It can be used to beautify a community, and it can also be used to talk about issues. It can be used in a peaceful way, and I really appreciate that. It's powerful visual imagery. There is a lot, especially in this type of society where there is a lot of violence, you can get the connection quickly. And if you don't get the connection, they have a big sign that explains what the crucifixes are for. But it's a very powerful way to stimulate dialogue, to stimulate to draw attention to this problem, and to maybe stimulate ideas and such. And again, it's situated at a bus stop, so you can't help but notice, as you're waiting there for the bus, this yard here with all the crucifixes in it. And then if you still don't notice it, again, there's a giant crucifix with a giant sign explaining what it is. Or when you're driving by, and again, it's situated between these two schools. I think one of them is like a junior high school. But they're obviously making a point, and they're using art to do it. And that's one of the reasons that I did start this channel, was to talk about, and to express, art as a tool, as a commentary tool, for social and political, and some personal issues as well. And so the second diptych, the one that you saw in this last video, was based on the first one. The composition is similar, but instead of in the first canvas, those subscribers who have been with me for a while, they'll recognize it. I'm going to try to put it on the end of this, but the majority of the first canvas is given over to this fantastical, surrealistic gun battle that has just taken place, and the color palette is very bright. It's got these delicious warm colors. It's based on palettes used by an artist that I really admire a lot, Wayne Thiebaud. You might recognize his name. He painted a lot of canvases around with pastries and sandwiches and soups and ice cream sundaes, and he used this color palette that's very yummy. And so I chose that color palette specifically for this, and because I think that sometimes that a lot of those youths who get caught up in that lifestyle, there is, because of the music and some of the movies and videos that are out there, where it is enticing, and then you have older male role models who do have the nice scrapers with the rims, and they've got the bling, and they've got the roll of Benjamins, and they're hearing them talk about this. And so how can you not be enticed by that if you don't have anything to replace that, that is that can counter effect that. And so the second portion of the canvas is given over to a rendering of this mock graveyard, and I chose the exact opposite in terms of color palette. It is just a gray, it's just a value painting with grays, blacks and whites to help get that point across. But working on this, there's only so many hours of a day that you can work on rendering dead bodies with handguns and bullet wounds and not get a bit depressed. And so I realized that even though it is going to make a point, but it's still, I didn't feel that it was enough, because there are people who, in seeing that, might be impressed with that, because we are desensitized to violence because of the media, because of what might be happening within our own community, within our own household. And so I decided, let me see if I can do this in another way. So it turned into a diptych. And so the second painting, that's what you saw, where it is the composition is similar, but instead of, and the focus is not on in place of the cereal boxes and these figures you've just been engaged in this gun battle, you have books, and in place of the graveyard you have a commencement ceremony, a graduation ceremony, and that can represent from high school, from junior high, or even from college. And so just wanting to use art as a form of just social commentary, and to just try to stimulate ideas, and just also again, I admire that community outreach organization for doing that, and I don't think that there can be enough that can be said about it, because art has, along with the rest of society, the rest of civilization, it has progressed. And anyone who has ever studied art, knows that there was a time in Western culture where art was reserved for a certain class. You could not, if you wanted to really get a solid education with art, you were of a particular social class. You catered to a particular social class. And yet that has changed, where now literally the concept and the definition of art has changed. There was traditionally that debate between art versus craft, where one has a utility, where it serves a purpose, meaning it can be artistic, but you can, if it's a blanket, you can use it to keep you warm. You can create sculptures, or pottery, but it can also be used to carry water. I mean, then that was considered craft, and it was like a lesser value, okay, in terms of aesthetic value. And then you had sculpture, you had embroidery, you had paintings, drawings, and yet that has changed, and no one can say, well, no one can make a definite stance and say, oh well, this is art and that is not. No one, I mean, you can't do that anymore. It might be your opinion, but opinions are like navels. Everybody's got one. So it doesn't really mean anything. But and because it has changed, because it has become more inclusive, that is one of the ways that you can use it. But then again, art has always been used to talk about social issues, but it's been subtle, and not a lot. The entire community did not necessarily get to see it. I'm thinking of The Potato Eaters by Vincent van Gogh. Clearly he was making, a point about the status of these people, their situation, that they were all, they had, they've got a plate of potatoes, but they can't even afford to have individual plates. They're all using, forks. They're having, this one common plate. And again, so it has been used, but it's changed now. And when he painted that, a very powerful painting, but how many people from that class that he was talking about even got to see the painting? Okay, so art has changed, and so the way that it's used socially and politically has changed as well. And so what I'm going to do now is just try to turn the canvas here. Okay, let's see. So So again, this is the first canvas, and get it in focus here. But as you can see over here is the mock graveyard, or rendering of it, and again the majority of the canvas is given over to this surrealistic, fantastical gun battle that has just taken place, and in the foreground you have the bowl of cereal with the bullets mixed in, and this represents just some of the lies, you know, and the misconceptions. It's not wanting to stay in focus here. The misconceptions that these youths are being filled with. You know, they're being spoon-fed these lies through the media, through questionable role models, and so it leads them, you know, to death. You know, either themselves, their friends, innocent individuals who might be walking by, who might find themselves caught in the middle of a situation that is clearly not of their own choosing. And so this is the first canvas. Now let me pull back here, and the second canvas, this is the second canvas. So as I was saying, you know, there's only so many hours of a day that you can work on, you know, rendering, you know, bodies that have just been killed. And so while it does make an impact, I just wanted to do another one. So the composition is similar. Instead of the graveyard, you have the ceremony. It's a commencement ceremony, graduation ceremony, and I gave over the majority of the canvas, that side of the canvas, on up into the foreground, where you have just a close-up view of the caps of the, you know, for the graduation, you know, the caps and the gowns. And instead of the cereal boxes, you have you have books. And books represent knowledge. They represent information, and information and knowledge is a form of power. And so this is a image. This is that I think can be just as powerful to get the point across. But the reason why I decided to do this diptych, you know, turn it into a diptych and let the second one focus on this, is to give those youths an option, or anyone viewing this. When you see the first canvas, yes, one could get very clearly, okay, this is showing, you know, that this access to handguns and bullets, that it is creating a problem of violence, and those individuals will more than likely end up dead or end up killing someone. But what can you give them instead? What can you offer to these youths who have nothing, who want something? They want food on their table, they want clothes on their back, they want to be able to provide, you know, entertainment and just material things for themselves, for their families. But what's another way to get it? And so I personally believe that this canvas, the second canvas, represents another option. That through getting an education, you can provide for yourself and for your family. It might not be a quick road to money, to getting a car, to getting a nice house, but it is a way that does not lead to death, in the sense that no one's going to be killed by reading a book or studying, doing their homework. And that's what I wanted to present a second option. And again, just giving over the majority of this canvas to this graduation ceremony. And so I've got some time on my hands, so I do want to work on this painting, because obviously there is some more detail that needs to be done on the actual figures, and I just want to put more emphasis on just what's happening here. So this is just my attempt at using art as a form of social commentary, and I welcome your opinions, any ideas that you have to enhance either of these canvases, and just your criticisms, your own ideas for social commentary. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm probably going to do a few more vids today. It's one of those days. It's kind of rainy outside, kind of gray, but it is winter time, and that's kind of cool. That's okay, but that's pretty much it. Okay, shalom.